Well, hello everyone, and welcome here to Epping. Nick and Astis, Steve Beals with you. It's FNL Gridiron presented by Beals Insurance. Week number 9, the final week of the regular season upon us. We are going to dive headfirst right into all the previews with exclusive interviews over the next 60 minutes. Another all-star lineup on the way. We start at 6:15 with our media portion of the program. Jay Pinzanolt of the Seacoast Media Group returns. Looking forward to chatting it up with Jay once again as we preview some of the big matchups out east in Division One in week number 9. Bottom of the hour, we begin to focus on our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire game of the week, which comes your way tomorrow night. It's Salem at Londonderry. That's a 7 o'clock start. Our coverage begins at 6:45 Eastern, and then again, it's the Blue Devils and the Lancers at the top of the hour. So Salem head coach Steve Abraham will once again jump on the show at 6:30. Looking forward to back-to-back weeks with Coach Abe. And then rounding it out, Jimmy Lozon, friend of the show, of course, the longtime Londonderry head football coach, now, of course, the athletic director as well. So Jay Pinzanolt, Steve Abraham, Jimmy Lozon, in that order. Steve, that good enough for you?
It was good, and you told me yesterday, Nick. Looking forward to it. Both of these coaches are fun to interview anyway. They're always very, very candid. What a pair of teams, what a great season both of these programs are having. So I look forward to talking to them, and hopefully Jay will be in a good place as far as the data or the bandwidth is concerned, so we can have him on for the full show. Missed him a little last time there.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties with Jay a few weeks back, but by all accounts, he should be good to go tonight. We begin the show, as we always do, with a look at the latest edition of the New Hampshire Union Leader Power Poll. Of course, that's made up of 7 members of the statewide media who vote week in and week out. And once again, defending Division I champion Bedford is at the top of the list. They are fresh off an out-of-state victory over Thornton Academy, 38-7 in week number 8. They improved to 7-0 in-state, 8-0 overall, and will wrap up the regular season against crosstown rival Merrimack. That is at Merrimack tomorrow night at 6:30. Pinkerton, they beat Salem on Friday Night Lights New Hampshire. We have that game of the week broadcast up under our video section on the YouTube channel, FNLNH Media. That was a 28-20 final. Pinkerton jumped out to an early lead and was able to hang on despite a pushback from Salem in the fourth quarter. So Pinkerton still undefeated and number 2 in the latest power poll. They will take on Central on the road to wrap up the regular season tomorrow night at 7. Coming in at number 3 is Londonderry. Coach Lozon has the Lancers at now 7-1 overall, 6-1 against in-state competition following a 40-0 shutout victory over Alvern last weekend. They'll take on Salem, as we mentioned, in our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire game of the week tomorrow night at 7. Portsmouth survived a scare. They were in a dogfight with Merrimack in Portsmouth back in week number 8, made a big play defensively to seal the deal, and ended up winning a low-scoring affair by a final score of 13-7 over the Tomahawks. So Portsmouth survives and is still undefeated with 1 week remaining. They are on the road tomorrow night at Timberlane for a 7 o'clock kick. Salem, despite the loss against Pinkerton, they remain at number 5 in the poll. They suffer their first in-state loss, are 6-2 overall, 6-1 against NHIAA competition, and will look to round out the regular season with a win tomorrow night, again on Friday Night Lights New Hampshire at Londonderry. Pelham sent a message to everybody with another big win in week number 8. They downed Souhegan in a rematch of last year's Division II championship. That final score was 40-21. Pelham has won 37 straight, including now 8-0 this season. They'll look to go undefeated again in the regular season if they can beat Hanover at home tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So Pelham, out of Division II, is number 6 in the poll. Dover, they're 5-2. They needed overtime to beat Concord on the road last weekend, 28-27. The Green Wave are 5-2-1 overall, 5-2 against in-state competition, and they've got a big matchup with a lot of potential playoff seeding on the line tomorrow night at Exeter. We'll get a preview, of course, of that game coming up with Jay Pincinel in just a few minutes. Speaking of Exeter, they are at number 8 in our poll. They snapped a 3-game skid with a win at Memorial back in week number 8. 28-7 was the final there. Exeter improves to 5-2 in state and 5-3 overall. And again, we'll host Dover tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Nashua North at number 9 in this week's poll, following a 21-18 win over Keene. They'll take on Division II Milford tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. North is 5-3 overall. And finally, Souhegan, despite the setback, their second of the season, their first in-division loss, Souhegan is at number 10. They're 6-1 against D2 opponents, and will take on John Stark at home tomorrow night at 7. Others receiving votes, Bishop Girton for a second straight week, Campbell, and Plymouth. And that is your power poll for week number 8. Steve, your overall thoughts?
Well, overall thoughts is, I don't know. Souhegan losing 48. What was the final score of that game again?
40-21.
40-21. Slip in there at number 10. But I think the real story there is Pelham moving up to 6. I think this team is pretty special. I think they've earned that way. Everything you've asked Pelham to do, but not facing any of the other Division I competition, I think that speaks volumes of how good this Pelham team is by the margins and the consistency in which they play on both sides of the ball. So congratulations to them for continually moving up. I think Salem is properly put there. That game against Pinkerton, a lesser team could have gone right downhill. That could have been a big margin, and that team fought and scrapped their way back. That game is on our YouTube channel, Nick, as you said, against Pinkerton last week. What a honey of a game that was. And to watch Coach Abraham's guys fight and scratch back, I'll tell you, you started to wonder about that game at the end, but Pinkerton's just so strong they were able to hold it off. But give Salem all the credit in the world. The big thing to me is if Exeter win, my understanding is if Exeter wins this game this weekend, then Portsmouth would go to the number 2 seed. I guess we're talking about the poll, but that's kind of interesting to see how all of this is working out. But Londonderry just on fire right now. We saw them 2 weeks ago, and they're on fire. I think it's certainly the first 8 or 9. I would these teams. How about Nashua North? Just coming back. One of the team that isn't on the top 10, Nick, that I just want to call attention to. Actually, 2 of them is Keene and Merrimack. These guys have been hanging around in games. You got to give Coach, Pat Node and Coach Kip Jackson a lot of credit for taking these teams and being competitive every single week, and taking on some stiff competition. And how about that Merrimack game? I mean, what was the final score of that one? I don't have it right in front of me, but 13-7. You just got to give Kip Jackson. He's taken a team that that doesn't have a lot of seniors, and he's done a great job with it. So he and Steve Abraham both done a good job. Steve Abraham, again, we talk about all the time, what an exemplary job he's done this year, bringing this very senior light team to the table. These guys are, never mind next year, are solid right now. So I think it's a good poll. And I think there's going to be some good playoff games coming up between these two teams as the seedings, Nick, get finally set. So
yeah, and of course we'll break down all the brackets next week on FNL Gridiron. We'll know a lot more than we do now a week from now. What we do know going into the final week of the regular season is that there are a lot, frankly, of playoff implications, seedings up for grabs, so to speak. Dover and Exeter, that's a big one, as you mentioned, Steve. Of course, the way it works is if 2 teams have the same record, the tiebreaker is either head-to-head or short of a head-to-head matchup. It's strength of schedule. So there's a lot of repercussions from games really outside of these teams' control that could factor into the seedings. Another little monkey wrench is, for the first time in a long time, we may have 3 undefeated teams in Division I run the table at 9-0. So the strength of schedule definitely could be a factor. So a lot of games to watch tomorrow night. Again, we'll be in Londonderry, but we'll have our eye on the scoreboard throughout the night, and we'll keep our viewers up to date. And of course, Londonderry, as you mentioned, Steve, the lone loss came back in week number 4. And since then, really, they've been lights out. They had a shutout 2 weeks ago against Exeter by a final score of 35-0. They follow that up with a 40-0 win over Alvern, and will again have a chance to really test themselves, sharpen their swords, so to speak, before going into the playoffs against a quality opponent tomorrow night against Salem. Whether or not the playoff seedings are affected, it's important, right, Steve, for these teams to play a good game in week number 9, close out the regular season with some momentum going into the tournament.
Absolutely. If we ever saw that, it was last week at the game we broadcasted in Salem, Pinkerton at Salem, where you saw Pinkerton finish the job, get it done, come away with a win, a lot of mutual respect between coaches and programs. But you also saw Salem walk off the field, and we talked about it at the end. Very rarely do you say there's good things that happen from any loss. But the way Salem handled themselves in that game against the top iron of the league, I thought was an exemplary job done from the sidelines and on the field by the Blue Devils, Nick. And I think that they come out of that game very confident going in against another ironclad team in the league in Londonderry, Nick. I would expect, as always, between these two teams, some real serious hitting. It's going to be very, very physical. There's going to be a real battle of the wills, and very different coaching styles from the type of offense that Salem runs versus what Coach runs from Londonderry. And it's just going to be. I'm really looking forward to see the kind of flavor that comes out of like last week, and then how Salem matches up this week, and how to and looking ahead as these teams ultimately could have a very good chance of playing each other later on. But the one to watch, I think, which is a big item, is where does Portsmouth line up? Do they take the 2 seed and grab a home ultimate? If they were able, if the top seeds win out, Nick, Ben and I were talking about this the other night. If Exeter can beat Dover, now you're in a situation where you got Portsmouth at the 2 seed, and you got Pinkerton at the 1, I believe, at the 1 seed, according to what we see right now. That doesn't mean Bedford won't wind up there, of course. But if that happens, the battle for home field in a potential theoretical semifinal is going to be really, really critical, I think, for any of these top 3 or 4 teams to be able to acquire. So I think this week, a lot of times the last week is mop-up time. Not this week. There's a lot of things that can happen in this season, in this last week, that could really have an effect on that. And you'll just wonder, with so many undefeated teams, how they're going to, at the end of the day, how tight and what are the sort of things that are going to differentiate them. But I believe, from my understanding, that that's how it will go if Exeter can come through with a win. But I think that's a tall order against this Dover team that has proved themselves as a solid, worthy top 10 in the poll, for sure. So it's going to be a very interesting game. See how that works.
Still a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, there is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Jay Pinzenel can help us get some answers. Let's bring in our first guest.
I would imagine.
Ready to roll. Of course, longtime writer at the Seacoast Media Group and a friend of the program. There he is. Jay, how are we tonight? How you doing?
I'm just very thankful that you guys allowed me to come back on after the last time you asked, and there was a lot of technical difficulties on my end. So I appreciate the second chance.
No problem.
You've got a second, a third, a fourth chance, Jay. You've bagged a lot of goodwill over the years,
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you sticking with us.
Very good. Thank you.
Let's start in Exeter here, Jay. Obviously, that seems like the marquee game, at least in the conference, in Division I East tomorrow night, because there's a lot of playoff implications on the line. What is the biggest storyline in your mind going into that Dover-Exeter matchup?
The biggest question I have is the Exeter defense strong enough to contain the multitude of weapons that Dover has offensively, and do they have enough on the offensive side of the ball to score against the Dover defense? going into this game, they're both what are they, 4-2 in the East, and a lot of movement could go either way on depending on who wins this game. But or I'm sorry, 5-2. They're both 5-2 in the East, and I think Dover goes into Exeter tomorrow night and comes out with the win, improves to 6-2, drops Exeter down to 5-3, and who knows what that will do with the brackets. But I think Dover, with Ryder Albin at the quarterback and Brady McInnes as a running back, and that freshman phenom they have, Amari Lewis, son of UNH standout Stephon Lewis from back in the early 2000s, and Bryce Carberry at tight end. I just don't think Exeter's defense can hold them in check for a full 48 minutes. So I think Dover, it's a close game at halftime. I think Dover ultimately wins by a 2-score game. It's going to be a great football game, and who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Ball has something up his sleeve and Exeter pulls out a win. But going into it, if Dover plays like they can on both sides of the ball, the Green Wave will win that game, get back to Dover with the 6-2 record in Division I.
Jay, never shy with the predictions. We like
Boy,
that
he's
here
going
on FNLNH.
prediction who will win, but by how much, Nick? That's really getting into
Right.
it.
All right, Jay, let me ask you this, kind of a two-part question. And it speaks to, I think, the momentum and the track that the two teams are on heading into this one. Exeter had lost 3 in a row prior to a 3-score win in week number 8 against Memorial, so they're back on the right track. On the other hand, Dover, yes, they beat Concord, but that was a game in which some would say that they were heavily favored against a banged-up Concord team, and they needed overtime to skate past by a point. Does that shake their confidence at all? Are these two teams seemingly going in different directions, or how does the momentum factor in here in this one?
Yeah, it's a great point. Dover did go into Concord last week, and they were able to pull out a 28-27 overtime win, and it took 2 touchdowns late by Amari Lewis at the end there. He caught the game-tying touchdown with just over a minute left in regulation, and then he scores on a 10-yard pass from Auburn on the first play of the overtime period. So I think I spoke to Eric Humba after the game, and he was very grateful to get out of there with the win. And no, they did not play their best football, but I think good teams find ways to win when they don't play their best. And when it came down to it, when they needed a touchdown at the end, Dover came out, got the game-tying touchdown to send it in overtime, and then on the first play scored in overtime to give them the win, and then holding Concord on that 2-point conversion game-winning attempt there at the end. And then Exeter came, as you said, they lost 3 in a row going into last week's game at Memorial. Very quickly, they were down 7-0 in the first quarter, and then they were able to get back going and scored the game's final 28 points to get them a much needed win. Coach Bill Ball told my colleague Brandon Brown after the game that that was a game they definitely needed to win, not only to get them to their 5th win of the season, but also get them back having some confidence after 3 straight losses to St. John's of Shrewsbury, Mass, and then losing by 2 scores at Portsmouth, and then getting shut out 35-0 at Londonderry. So Exeter did get back on track, and as I said earlier, Bill Ball in late October, you can never count out the Blue Hawks, and maybe that game last week at Memorial, facing some adversity at the beginning, getting down 7-0 and coming back to win, maybe that gets them going and playing their best football at the end of the season. And I think that would start tomorrow if they were able to play well and pull out a win against a very good Dover team. That would certainly give the Blue Hawks some momentum going into the playoffs next week.
Steve?
Let's go over to Portsmouth and Bedford, the battle for the number 2 seed. My understanding, I don't know if you were in the background, you heard. My understanding is that if Exeter wins that game, then Portsmouth would be in the 2 seed. I believe Pinkerton is right now structured. If they win out, they would be the 1 seed. That is a huge item when it comes to semifinal games and as far as home field advantage is concerned. Because so what do you know about that, Jay? Have you looked at that, and how does Coach Pafford's team find it? What are the options that he finds his way in number 2, and then what are Bedford's options to secure that?
Bedford, I don't know anything at all about Bedford. I know that they were battle tested in the first half in their game against Dover, that they ultimately won 42-10, but they were down 10-7 early. On the Coach Pafford side, they're at Timberlane tomorrow night. That's a good Timberlane team, and they've entire season they've gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, and they beat Winnicott last week. So maybe if trends continue, Portsmouth escapes with the win tomorrow night. But I really haven't seen a bracket, so I really couldn't tell you what a win could possibly do to Portsmouth. But the only thing I do know is that if Portsmouth were to win, which I think they do pretty handily, that gets them to 8-0, and either if that's enough to get them to a 2 seed. I know it's very loaded on the other side with Pinkerton and Bedford and Salem and Londonderry. As we said a couple weeks ago, there's a lot of good football teams this year, and it's going to be a very top-heavy bracket where you could have a number 5 seed as a 1-loss team, and I think it's anybody's a tournament this year. But I think Portsmouth goes in, and if Portsmouth were to get to 8-0, if that gives them enough to get to the 2 seed, I don't know how the brackets are going to play out.
That seems like a pretty important position. It looks like Pinkerton, if they win next week, they're in number 1, but the 2 and 3 slot appears, and again that assumes Londonderry is going to beat Salem, and I don't think that's anything guaranteed with those 2 teams. Jay, a couple teams that you might give us that whether they're in the top 10 or not, but that you look at the way they're playing football could cause some real havoc and potentially could be an upset type team that goes deep in the playoffs. Any of those, any programs that you've seen, whether that would fit that mold as far as what you can see?
Yeah, I would think the only team that I've seen this year that could fit that narrative of being maybe could sneak in and pull off an upset is Kevin Hebert's group over at Spalding High School. They started the season at 0-4, but they've scored in the last 4 games. They've scored 41 points, 49, 42, and 57. So that offense is churning right now. I believe Kevin told me Wednesday, so that would be yesterday, that he believes a win tomorrow night at Winnicott would definitely get them in as one of the 10 at-large bids. And if Spalding can get in, depending on where they fall in the bracket, they get 2 very good running backs in Hunter Truman and Seth Cortina.
Yep.
Hunter Truman is not your typical high school running back where he's probably close to 6'3", 6'4", 225, 235 pounds, and it takes more than one kid to get him down. And then Seth Cortina is more of a shifty back where he's got the speed to the outside and then the quarterback, Caden Melendez, but those 3 kids, they took some lumps when they were freshmen and sophomores, but they're playing well in their last 4 games. And they started the season 0-4, but I think they go into Hampton tomorrow. They beat Winnicott to get to end the season on 5 straight wins, and I think that team, Spalding, I don't know if you want to face them if they're the number 10, number 11. They could they could give a team a problem in that first round, and they could pull off an upset in the first round for sure.
Okay, there you go. Good stuff.
Jay, where are
Kevin,
you going to be tomorrow night?
Gets it done.
I will be at Spalding Winnicott tomorrow. And I just got back from the Spalding Winnicott freshman game, and there's my youngest son plays for Winnicott, and they were able to hold off Spalding and complete an undefeated regular season. So Winnicott had a tough year this year, but the future's looking bright for Ryan Franco and the Warriors. But to answer your question, I'll be at Spalding and at Winnicott tomorrow night for a very critical game for Spalding and Ryan Franco. He told me yesterday that he does not want to give a team a free pass into the tournament, and he's going to do and they're treating tomorrow as their playoff game. And if they can beat Spalding and make it more difficult for Spalding to hope for some outside help for them to get in, he would love to be able to do that and cause some angst, some headaches over there on the Spalding sidelines, trying to see if they can figure it out if they get one of those 10 at-large bids if they were not able to get a win at Winnicott. But I think Spalding ultimately is too strong of a team not to win tomorrow. I think that game's going to be probably a 20-point win by Spalding. So,
Nick, can I ask one more quick question, Nick? Nick, can I ask one more quick question?
Just about against. Got to be quick. Go ahead.
All right, real quick. What do you think about this 3-conference system that they developed in the playoff system? You think this is working well? You think this is a plus? We should keep it, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think the other alternative would go back to 4, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so I think if it's 3 or if it's 4, I think you're still going to get the best teams in the tournament, and I think it plays out well. I think there's pros and cons with a 3-conference system and going back to the 4, but I don't see a problem the way it is. I think either 3 or 4, the best teams are going to get in, and they're going to be seeded appropriately.
It's felt pretty good this year. I'll leave it at that. It seems like there's a lot of horse races going on, and that's just what makes it fun at the end of the year, Jay. I concur. Thank you, Nick.
Jay, appreciate it, brother. Thank you as usual, and we'll talk again very soon.
All right, I'm just glad that I had some credibility to come back and get an invitation after last time. So
light up a fire.
Light
up a fire.
Oh, you're VIP around here. We appreciate it. Thanks, Jay.
Great job. I appreciate it.
Jay Pinzadol of the Seacoast Media Group doing his thing with us. All right, on the other side, we get into some coach talk. Coach Abraham returns for the second straight week. The Blue Devils in another big game at Londonderry in our game of the week. You are watching FNL Gridiron. It's presented by Beals Insurance.
Our broadcast today, as it always is brought to you by Beals Insurance Agency, with locations now in both Bedford and Londonderry. Whether you need home, auto, or business insurance, Beals Insurance will get you both the price and quality coverage that's right for you. Just call 603-471-9999 or visit BealsInsurance.com to request a free quote and start saving money today. Again, that's BealsInsurance.com. How can you reach your team's fundraising goals at no risk and no cost? MG Sports offers a variety of products to make your team's fundraiser a success. Their products include tickets and discount cards to hundreds of local businesses. MG Sports now has a digital platform where athletes can raise funds in the comfort and safety of their own home. Don't waste another season. Raise more funds than ever before and become another football program in New Hampshire that sets fundraising records every season. MG Sports, fundraising made easy. Visit mgsportsfundraising.com to start raising money for your team today. The New Hampshire Tomahawks promote the highest level of club lacrosse competition, not just in the state, but in the country. Looking to get recruited? Director Chris Cameron keeps an open dialogue with the nation's top college lacrosse coaches. Over 400 New Hampshire Tomahawks alumni have played at the college level, including the ACC, Big East, Big Ten, Ivy, NESCAC, NE10, and more. The New Hampshire Tomahawks coaching staff has over 100 coaches, including current high school varsity and college coaches. The Tomahawks offer training for players of all ages, clinics, camps, and leagues, along with spring, summer, and fall elite teams. So play with the best. The New Hampshire Tomahawks, showcase and development for college lacrosse. Visit NewHampshireTomahawks.com and girls.nhtomahawks.com.
Hey, I'm Chad, the owner of New Hampshire iPhone Repair. We're New Hampshire's most trusted and affordable repair shop for your iPhone, iPad, iPod, and even Android needs. Don't worry, we're affordable, reliable, and we back our parts with a lifetime warranty. And you know what the best part is? No, what? We can repair your phone while you wait.
I know, that's why I'm here.
Oh, I know, Mrs. Green. Here's your iPad, good as new. Bring your phone into New Hampshire iPhone Repair today.
Buy local and save big. For over 26 years, Spectrum Monthly has been providing great local offers from businesses in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, delivered to your mailbox every month. Spectrum is chock full of savings from your favorite businesses. From local restaurants and retail stores to entertainment, fitness, and home improvement services. You'll have easy access to thousands of dollars in savings, including exclusive offers for Spectrum readers. Every month, enter our readership contest for a chance at winning cash and local gift certificates. Spectrum Monthly, no one brings you better offers.
FNL Gridiron right here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire, every Thursday night throughout the rest of the football season, all the way through championship weekend. It's only right here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. Nick Anastas, Steve Beals with you. We thank Jay Pinzenalt of the Seacoast Media Group giving us some good insight on what's going on out there in Division I East on the eve of the playoffs. Still, of course, one regular season game remaining, and we are at Londonderry tomorrow night in our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire Game of the Week, presented by Beals Insurance. We get underway at about 6:45 Eastern Time, ahead of that 7 o'clock kickoff. Blue Devils and Lancers to conclude the regular season. Let's bring him in for the second straight week. Steve Abraham, the Salem head coach, joining us here on FNL Gridiron. Coach, good evening. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good.
You're not at the
How you doing,
office
Steve?
this week, it looks like.
No, I'm home. The team dinner is downstairs right now, so they're getting some barbecue tonight. So we'll see what happens.
It's a good night for a barbecue, for sure.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Coach, I guess assess the four quarters last week against Pinkerton before we move on to the upcoming matchup with Londonderry. Your team caught some tough breaks, it looked like, in the first half, trailed at 1 point by 3 scores in the second half, but they didn't quit. And in the end, were very competitive in a 28-20 final score. Your thoughts on the way your team performed against one of the premier programs in the state in Pinkerton?
Yeah. They performed actually how I thought they would. Our guys are they're tough. I've said this over and over again. We're not the fastest, biggest, or strongest, but we're tough, and we play together. So we make a lot of young mistakes. So, the 4 quarters, the first quarter was a 0-0 game against that team, and we had some opportunities. We played pretty good defense the first couple of drives. We forced them to punt. But then, our freshman, and I'm not upset with him. He's a freshman. He's trying to make a play, and he doesn't get out of the way, and the punt hits him on the back of the leg, and they get a short field, right? And that led to their first score. So you can't do those things against a great team. And that's what we did. We shot ourselves in the foot, and they force you to do that with some of the things they do. But our immaturity and youth just made too many mistakes. And again, we'll keep swinging, but that cost us at the end. So in the second quarter was the same thing, and then we our quarterback Lumley, who's great, and I love him. He probably was a little too excitable. He needed to settle down a little bit. He missed a couple throws. He had Tedesco on their sideline because Coach O'Reilly and I talked on Saturday, and that was probably a touchdown. He was wide open. There was nobody there. We saw it, and he rushed the throw a little bit. And then again, Pinkerton does what they do. They got that stable of backs, and they took advantage of it. They come in the second half, same exact player that the ball hit in the foot. They hit a 95-yard touchdown pass over him on a pass play that we repped all week. And he got eager to come in and make a play on the run, and they beat him. So, but again, I'm just happy that our guys didn't quit. And I told them the scoreboard doesn't matter. What matters is how you play each play. And in the end, if you do that the right way, it all will work itself out, because the season wasn't over on Friday night, right? So, there's no better way to get better at football than to play Pinkerton and then this week play Londonderry.
Yeah. Coach, what was the response of the team? Because in my mind, it could probably go one of two ways. Either they're dejected by the loss, or they get confidence knowing that they can hang with some of the iron in the league, as Steve likes to say. What was the week like in practice with the group following that loss?
Our best 2 weeks of practice were last week and this week, and fun, loose, but they paid attention to detail and did what they had to do. During the game, there was it was late in the third quarter, maybe even the fourth quarter, when Pinkerton was up by a few scores, and Lumley goes, I think it was actually Danny Hughes, and just says, "Hey, this is on me. This is on us. This is on the offense tonight. We made too many mistakes." And that's the type of mentality that they have. They don't fight with each other, right? I mean, clear. We battle back. It didn't matter what the score was. We were going to keep competing. So I think what it told them was, and what it told me is, we're not there yet. Like the big boys are the big boys, and they're great for a reason. We're a little below, but we will keep playing, competing, and if we can take the good coaching, we proved, I think, that we can play with the Pinkertons and the Londonderrys of the world.
Steve?
Yeah, this young Gonzalez fella, I've been watching him all year long, and boy, I'll tell you, what an unselfish football player this guy. When he blocks with his equal, if not more, intensity than when he even runs the ball, and he does phenomenal. What can you say about the development of this guy this year, the value that he adds to this team, and the leadership by example that he sets on every time the ball snaps?
Yeah, Felix is great. I mean, and rightfully so. We give Tedisco a lot of.
He was coming next.
Great. Yep, but he's great. But it's a good 1-2 punch, and they're a little different. Felix, as I always say, he's got our wiggle in the hips, and Tedisco is more going to run through you. But Felix is a smart football player. We bounce him around on the defense a lot. Now we haven't played him the last few weeks really on defense. He got a little dinged up. I mean, maybe it was homecoming week. No, it was Alvern. And he didn't play for a couple of weeks, and we kind of spotted him a little bit. So he's back to being fully healthy, but he's a tough football player, but he's a smart football player, and he's selfless. Like, he doesn't care who gets the carry. That's the great thing with our guys, that they don't talk about, hey, I want the ball, this or that. They just, they want to block, and they want to run, but they just want to play football together. And Felix epitomizes that. He's a great kid. I'm blessed with these guys.
Yeah, you sure are. I've been watching him all year, and I've seen him. He was good against Concord, but he's even developed more, I think, since they're on especially on the offensive side of the ball. The lanes he chooses, the way he's reading blocks, cutting inside when there's an outside seal, cutting inside when he's got the edge. He makes a lot of good choices, and he's got he can run the ball after he busts through the line. But one of the other things I saw, and we talked about it on screen, Nick and I, and about midway towards the end of the third quarter, the hitting in this game was pretty fierce, pretty intense, and the game had a intensity about it that you could see would cause fatigue to even a well-conditioned athlete. And I saw that you guys, and you are younger. There's no argument there. And these guys are taking on a large senior class against Pinkerton skilled ball players. I saw hands in the hips of your guys coming in the huddle. And I said, "Oh boy, they've hit the fatigue point." And if you looked at that, you would probably predict that the game would just go further apart as far as it. And then those guys came to the line, and they just fired off the ball and played with I wouldn't call it reckless, with very, very played with abandon, but in control abandon. And they were expending themselves, and then they came back off, hands in the hips, trying to catch their breath and go back. I'll tell you, just talk about lunch pail football to a high degree. What was going on with these guys? Is this something in practice with these guys? Because they look like that fighter that was about ready to go down. And then if they rope, I don't know if it's rope a dope, but I think that was real fatigue, Steve. And then they come back when they get down in position to get off the ball defensively. They just did an incredible job. There's a motor in these guys that are very special. Do you know the game? Part of the game I'm talking about? The end of the third?
Yep.
Yeah. Talk to me.
Absolutely.
What were you thinking then?
My favorite part of that game was Pinkerton's driving the ball down up 28-7, and they were in the red zone, and we could have let them score, and our guys didn't. They didn't. They didn't let them score, and then we actually stop them. Then we come down and drive the ball to get the down to 3 scores. But that one just showed that they didn't quit, because a team that doesn't have the, and I'm going to use the word heart, but the passion and belief of what we're trying to preach, which is about, right, play every play. And that's what they do, right? So they get in, they give themselves every play, let's recuperate the next play, right? And that's what they did, is just kept fighting and playing. And that's what they have in them, and they do it at practice. And it's one of the things at the beginning of the year, I put all these things on the board that were important, and not to give you all of them here, but one of them was, play this game with passion. And so that is what they do. It's about playing with passion and playing together. This group is together. A lot of teams don't know this, or people don't know this, but before every game, they get together and they do a team prayer together, and that has nothing to do with us. They want to do that. So they are united. They don't fight, and that's what they do. They get in the huddle and say, let's give it all we got for the next 10 seconds. So
Well,
I think if we do that enough, we'll be all right.
Yeah. A prayer, Steve, in itself is basically looking for guidance from and support from a higher power together, and that's a powerful force for the body, mind, and spirit. And these guys clearly show that. I saw that. Last point. One of the things that I would look for in a quarterback, if I was a college recruiter and looking, was the ability to pass the ball from their weakest point, whether it be rolling out to their weak side, or being a part of the field and firing a ball with such velocity on target that the defender was, any normal defender would have gone for pick six. I think you know the play I'm talking about on your side. Lumley threw a ball, and the defender thought he had a pick, and he threw it with such velocity that it beat him, and he was surprised himself. And I believe he either went down for a touchdown or he went way down the field towards. I forgot the ending of the play. This guy is got a gun, and he can do it from no matter what vulnerable position he's in. What are your thoughts on that? Do you remember that play?
It was the touchdown to Tedesco at the end.
It was, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
What people see is they do, and again, give Tedesco credit. That's not an easy catch, he makes a great run, and then our split end on that side turns around and makes a great block team. But if Nolan doesn't throw that ball where he does with the velocity he does, that is a pick six.
Yes.
And what I love during the week is the kids were talking, and Kevin was talking about his touchdown, and Nolan was like, hey, I threw that ball in there. So they do it like in fun banter, and he was right.
Yeah.
He did. That was one of my favorite throws Nolan made. He made a great throw in that game that our receiver didn't get his head around. It was at the end of the half. He threw the ball on a rope on a post route over the middle, and if our guy catches it and their guy doesn't make that tackle, it was a touchdown. He put it on such a laser. Nolan's come a long way, especially in our offense, right? The old boring wing tee that we don't throw the ball.
Oh, stop. Talk to me when it's pouring rain out. It's pouring rain and 36 degrees and turns to snow by the end of the game. Talk to me about that offense then.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. Well, you got a great group. We're really looking forward to this game tomorrow night. I couldn't agree with you more. What better way to end a season than play solid iron, which you're going to be doing last week and this week. Regardless of what happens tomorrow night, you guys will be playoff ready. What are you looking for your team after this? Nick very well pointed out what you can take away from the last game. What are you looking to take away from this game? Obviously, other than a win. Other than a win, I'm talking about with
and we're playing to win the game tomorrow night.
Yep.
We've Londonderry is probably gonna be the best defense we'll see all year. They are massive up front. Ty Miles could be player of the year. They're well coached. Jimmy does a great job. And he does a great job with the X's and O's part of it. But what they do over at Londonderry, they get those kids to play. So they are going to come flying 100 miles an hour. And so what it will do is it will make us tougher. It will make us better. And what I'm looking for is just another great competitive game against
Well,
what a shame to lose them.
We were flawless up until that point, but we appreciate Steve coming on either way.
Oh, here he is.
There he is.
He's back.
I'm back.
We lost you for a
What'd you
second.
do? Turn the Christmas lights off?
No, who knows? Probably one of the kids called me. I don't know if you heard me. I just said I want a competitive game and get our guys better against a well-coached top program. I mean, they've been in the championship numerous times here. I think it'll be a hard fought game, but let's get better and see where we stand as we get ready for the playoffs.
Well, best of luck tomorrow night, Steve.
Absolutely. We appreciate your
All right,
time
thank
for a
you, guys.
second straight week as well, Coach. And as Steve
in high
said, good
demand.
luck tomorrow night. We're looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
That's Coach Abraham live from the barbecue in Salem as his squad gets ready for battle tomorrow night at Londonderry. Remember, we're on the air tomorrow night, 6:45, ahead of that 7 o'clock kick. It's our Friday Night Lights New Hampshire Game of the Week, presented by Beals Insurance. So Coach Abraham will be on the visitor sideline, and Coach Lozon, of course, will be on the home sideline. The athletic director / head coach joins us right now here on FNL Gridiron. You know who he is by now, a friend of the program. There he is, live from the couch, relaxing the calm before the storm. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Can't say it's calm. I got the players over, so they may interrupt at some point, or my little kids will. So either way, but if they're too loud, let me know.
No, we can't hear them at all. So
We
it
love
sounds like
kids.
They're upstairs. I snuck downstairs,
Okay.
so we'll see. We'll see how long that
That's a
lasts.
smart move. Coach, talk about the role that your team has been on the last few weeks. Obviously, the lone loss came earlier in the season against Pinkerton at week 4. You got a couple of one-score wins in the immediate games following that. But the last 2 weeks especially, back-to-back blowouts, back-to-back shutouts against Exeter and Alvern. Has your team kind of flipped a switch over the last couple of weeks, or what's been the difference?
I think we're starting to play our best football. That's the last 2 weeks. I thought, we've seen what we've been expecting from them throughout the year, and now it's just a matter of sustaining it. I've been on them all year about we understand we're going to go through our growing pains throughout the year. We filled a lot of vacant spots that left by some great players last year, and so through experience they're going to get better. And the early in the year we were seeing some of those growing pains. So the last 2 weeks we've really seen the growth. It's just a matter of sustaining it, which is we want to peak at the end, and that's been the message to the team. And grow and then peak at the end, and hopefully we'll start to play our best football, which is shown since from Exeter to Alvern to hopefully it'll continue. I'm not expecting it to be perfect. We'll have some bad quarters or maybe a bad half, but better than a bad game. And usually good teams can recognize when they're making mistakes and fix them.
Take us a little bit inside not the locker room, but how about the practice field? Is it just reps that's getting these guys better, reps and experience, or do you guys kind of add in increments, I suppose, things to the game plan, things week in and week out to challenge the guys, put more on their plate, so to speak? Or how does that work? Is it more about, more of the same, more of it, or do you kind of add a little bit week by week?
You just kind of you summed us up right there with we add week to week. We like to build on what we do. I mean, that's if we're playing well. Then we obviously have shown the signs to be able to do that. If not, then we've got to kind of stay where we are until we can master that. But this year, I think you build that through all right, this is what we're going to add, and they get used to that, and then they got to come in really focused. They've got to take those reps really seriously in order to get it right, or maybe get it wrong, but learn from it so that they get it right on Friday. We are a big game plan team. We try not to necessarily be the same team week in and week out just like exactly what you're going to get, and we don't change that much. But we like to have some things off of what we do, and then for what the other team does against us. It's nothing new. I think all the coaches that coach against us know that we don't treat any opponent the same week to week. Everyone plays different defenses. Everyone plays different offenses, and it's hard for us to just go out there and be the same team every single week, expect the same result when we're seeing someone different. So, we're big on adjusting, and we ask a lot of the kids, and I think when they get thrown into that role, they learn, and that's what we're seeing this year is they're growing throughout the year. They were able to sit back as sophomores and juniors and watch the Drew Heenans and the Andrew Colemans of the year of the team do all that stuff, and now it's their turn. So they're learning as we're going here.
Coach, how do you handle the quarterback situation in game? You started obviously with 4 quarterbacks. You're still pretty much playing 4 quarterbacks. Are different players assigned to different packages, personnel packages, or is it kind of a managed by feel situation? What exactly goes into that decision at that position, the quarterback?
Yeah, so no, it'd be too much to think about if I veered off from our packages. But there are certain plays that I want to run with. Sorry, they're all moving their chairs. There are certain plays that I want to run with certain players. But for the most part, it's really we stick to our packages. We might make one personnel change, like I might put a receiver change or a running back change in a certain package just for certain plays. But other than that, it's already predetermined based on the drive or mid-drive. We'll make a switch. And I know what I want to do with each one of them as the season has gone on. They've kind of turned into or started to do a lot of what I thought they would be able to do. And so, we're slowly adjusting. And as, the big moments come, I've got to put the right guy in the right place to do the right thing. And, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think they are too. I enjoy it. I love it's like, hey, we're struggling. All right, next quarterback. Let's see if he can give us a spark, and we haven't always had that. So it's been kind of fun to play with. And they all play a lot of other roles. So I think it's nice that they don't have to put 45, 50 plays in a row together on that offensive side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's sure been fun to watch, right, Steve?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Coach. Good to have you here again. That Exeter game to me was a culmination of a lot of things that you have a puzzle and you have pieces that are kind of disaggregated, and then all of a sudden you find the right pieces and you put them in, and everything else becomes kind of fabricated together. It seemed to me that game, you guys throughout that game just got really, really strong and started playing at a very, very high level. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's what I saw. Because right now you're just dominating teams by wide margins and with very, very few errors throughout a game. Your thoughts on your team and on that?
The Exeter game was probably our best from a physical and mental, limitation of mistakes. I thought that was, that was good. I didn't get to rip that film apart. They did a pretty good job. They executed most of what we asked. There's a few errors here and there, which is to be expected, right? And then Alvern, we kind of carried it on. Alvern, we have a lot of respect for them. We thought they were, a good team going in. They have 3, really good players. Tight end, receiver, running back are all really good ball players, and so they had our focus, and I think that showed. And that's the biggest thing is when the team is focused, really respect the opponent and respect the players on the other side of the field. It's going to bring out the best in us. And Chelmsford was one of those games where we went there and they were extremely focused. And the challenge coaching is getting them to be that way all the time, every single game. And I'm hoping now they know how big tomorrow night's game is, and every game going forward is a matter of trying to advance us. So they've got to play their best.
Different offenses, Coach, between these two teams tomorrow night, but one common theme is all 11 players block. Steve and you put a tremendous amount of emphasis of downfield blocking, and if you're a skilled player, you better block as hard as the linemen are. And you can see that on both teams. How do you approach your offense without giving any away tomorrow night's secrets? But what are the sort of things that Salem has when you face them defensively that you really need to be careful of?
You got to be able to match the numbers. I think a big part of what they do is trying to gain a numbers advantage. And so, we've got to make sure if we are outmanned, it's not by many. But a lot of teams don't adjust, and we know them well. But they'll probably have a wrinkle or two for us. And they're slowly building off what they do, and that's evident. So you've got to win the blocks. You've got to win the edge against him, and then you got to have eye discipline. Your eyes got to be in the right place. You can't fall asleep. The quarterback can really hurt you. He throws off sidearm one leg and you throw it 35 yards. The kid's got a really strong arm. He can definitely take the top off. So we don't want to be chasing any receivers, but we've got to have our eyes in the right place, and we've got to make sure we can match everything that they throw at us. They do it so many different ways, and And so, prepping high school kids for all of that to recognize certain
Right.
things. And we know it's impossible. So at some point, the kids just be able to play.
Coach, one of the things that you guys you've had a cast of characters that have been leaders all year long, coming right in. Is there any guy that may not have started out that way that has developed this year? You want to call out and say, not call out, but I mean, want to kind of talk about that it's maybe not as started as a leader, but grown into it as a football player and as a positive leader on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so much growth from this group, a lot of maturity. So that could go to a lot of guys. I really like the Ty Parsons has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
linebacker.
good one.
Before. I think a lot of people, we lost Nate Pedrick, and people were like, "Oh my God, what are you going to do?" And Nate was awesome, sideline to sideline, phenomenal linebacker. And Ty has just stepped in and been able to line us up and be in the right places, and has played extremely tough and has found his voice, and his energy level is high. And then I'd say, Sam Ogden and Alex Villa have done a great job.
Yeah, definitely.
Juniors, with a senior heavy team, kind of feeling out their role at the beginning, but now that they've really grown into the quarterback role. But I mean, Cam Brutus has been phenomenal this year as a senior, who's a guy who changed games last year for us in the playoffs with special teams and stuff. But man, he has stepped up and has done a great job. It's just, there's a whole bunch of them. I could keep going. Devin Bowles is doing a great job, continuing to grow as a leader, and guys up front. It's just been it's been fun. I don't know if I've seen as much growth, and as soon as those guys graduated, it's like, all right, it's our turn, and I wish they didn't wait until that point to really, start to show this type of growth, but they have, and they've done a lot.
Well, they're doing it at the right time. That's for sure. Yeah. Hey, speaking of people,
hard.
last point. Speaking of people, I was down the field today doing some bandwidth tests, for our equipment to make sure we can get a good feed tomorrow night. Very excited about coming to Londonderry. As always, Nick and I love it. And Tony treats us great, and we always appreciate that. And the pizza's always good, too. But I was down there today on the field, and I believe his name is Keith, and he was lying in the field. I think his name was Keith, he said. And I looked out on the field, and that field looks like it's June. As far as I don't know what you're doing to it and what you put on. It looked like almost AstroTurf, and so I've never seen the.
They don't let us on it. So
huh?
Friday nights is our only chance. So they they do a great job.
Well, it looks terrific. It looks like the Irish countryside with the emerald green up top. Just absolutely beautiful. We look forward to being there as always, Coach. And just a great place. You guys start the game, and it's just in a really exciting place to see. And we look forward to it. And we wish you the best of luck for sure. And we expect a dogfight. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Jim, as always, for coming on, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
And again, Jimmy Lozon, the head coach of Londonderry, the athletic director, and the host of the Thursday night barbecue as his team chows down in advance of another big game.
Nick, what would you imagine? Nick, hey, Nick, what would you imagine the caloric intake is going to be upstairs tonight? I mean, I couldn't imagine.
Beyond me.
How about the food bill? I mean, it's got to be pretty fierce,
I'd say. All right. Yeah. That just about does it for us here this week. One final reminder, we're on the air tomorrow night, 6:45, ahead of the 7 o'clock kick. It's our Friday Night Lights game of the week between Salem and Londonderry to wrap up the regular season. I want to thank our guests tonight, Jay Pinzenalt of the Seacoast Media Group, Steve Abraham, the head coach at Salem, and you just heard it from Jimmy Lozon, the head coach / athletic director at Londonderry. I want to thank the sponsors as well, Beals Insurance, MG Sports Fundraising, of course, New Hampshire iPhone Repair, the New Hampshire Tomahawks, and Spectrum Monthly. We appreciate the ongoing support. Got to shout out the director, the man behind the curtain, Ben Beals, down in the Beals Insurance Studios. My partner, executive producer, Steve Beals, joining us live from Londonderry tonight. My name is Nick Anastas, saying so long. We'll see you tomorrow night in Londonderry. This has been FNL Gridiron, presented by Beals Insurance.